It's fall, it's the soccer season, which means a return to keeping it real with Coach Neal. Alongside the head coach of the UNCW women's soccer program, Neal, I'm Eric Rue. So glad to have you with us. Coach, soccer season's here in the traditional sense. You went through a very busy spring with everything turned around. Now you come back, you get your full, hopefully, fall season. It's got to be a good feeling to have everybody back on the field.
Yeah, it does. It does feel good to have August soccer again. And we're very grateful for that. And it's still new because it was a very quick turnaround from the spring season. So lots of moving parts. It feels like everything's moving 200 miles per hour, but we are grateful to be here.
Let's talk about that a little bit. You're used to playing games in the fall, having a couple maybe contests in the spring, sort of exhibitions, scrimmages, and then you come back in the fall. But your team now comes back after playing 10 games in the spring, contending for a CAA title, and a quick turnaround to get ready for the fall. How much of an adjustment is that when you're sort of used to a routine of sorts?
Well, I think it was a big adjustment for our returning roster because we had very low numbers on our roster in the spring season. It was a very successful spring season, but we weren't able to establish, because of the low numbers, we weren't able to establish an intense cycle of training. We basically just had to bubble wrap players midweek so that we would have enough to play the games on the weekends. And now that's very, very different. So I think that's been a little bit of a harsh contrast for some of the players. So that's been a big challenge for all of us is, now we've got time to get into a training rhythm, to train at a little bit higher intensity levels. Obviously, the nature of NCAA sport is that we have a very short preseason. We just don't have a lot of time. So it is imperative that the players put in the work over the summertime to be ready for a preseason. And we saw kind of mixed results in that respect. Some players did put in the work, and they are keeping us above water at this point, but we had a handful that didn't put in the work. And so we're having to navigate that right now and to get them up to game speed. So I think it's been a different transition and one we're still acclimating to.
You talk about that quick turnaround. The team reported August 6th. 3 days later, you're facing North Carolina, a team that reached the semifinals of the NCAA College Cup in May. It had to be a pretty quick turnaround, and there wasn't a lot of time to assess things. When you go back and look at that North Carolina game, a 3-1 setback, what did you see from your team, given the fact that they had only been on the field a couple of days?
Yeah. Well, when you play an opponent like Chapel Hill, you're going to be exposed everywhere you're vulnerable. That is the equivalent of bringing Alabama football into town. So from a women's soccer standpoint. So that was good for us. We were able to identify some areas of weakness that we need to improve on very quickly. It was also an acclimation game for us. No player played more than 45 minutes. That was the goal because it was so early in the preseason. So for the care of the athletes and to make sure that we don't get too caught up in our competitiveness, we limited every player to 45 minutes. And I thought that the girls competed really, really well in that event.
You closed out the preseason at East Carolina just a few days later, a 3-0 setback to the Pirates. Then you turn your attention to preparing for the season opener against VCU. In the time that you've had with this team over the last 2.5 weeks, what have you learned about this group?
Well, we're still learning a lot, and it's still very early. But, we found ourselves down 2-0 at halftime against VCU, and the competitive spirit and fight and dedication to the battle in the second half was extremely good. There was no give up. We've had some setbacks, in the first couple of weeks from a roster standpoint. We haven't been able to get into a rhythm due to a variety of reasons. But we went into VCU with 16 field players, and everybody played a big part and got minutes. And there was a tremendous amount of dedication and fight as a team. So that was a really good feeling. And I told them at the end of the game, that I'll sleep at night tonight because the effort and the fight was there. And that is the first step to competing in the long haul. If that's not there, you're in big trouble.
Morgan Anney pots the first goal of the season for you in that second half. And Again, she's picking up right where she left off at the end of last spring. For her to basically take the offensive lead on Sunday, how important is it for a redshirt senior to show the younger kids how to get things done?
Extremely important. Morgan is a captain, and she's a veteran. She is first-team all-conference, and she must lead by example. So for Morgan to have scored and to brought us back in that moment, to flip that game a little bit on Sunday was vital. And for the younger players to see that, that's also tremendously helpful. I will also add that Jordan Favre and Emily Bobliss both played a big piece in that goal as well. And Jordan's work out wide 1v1, which is something she's been dedicating herself to over the past couple of years, freed her up to get that cross off. And then Emily Bobliss, freshman, made a very good near post run across the goalkeeper. That's something we've talked about a lot in the preseason. So for me, it was a really interesting dynamic to see Jordan, who's not a senior but a veteran, the freshman doing her job, and then the captain finishing it off was a good sign for the future.
UNCW again falling to VCU 2-1 on Sunday in the season opener. And Coach, now you turn your attention. You have 2 games in a span of 4 days coming up. High Point on Thursday, UNCG on Sunday at home. For this team, how important is it to come away and work hard this week, and especially knowing that this is the first time that some of them will play essentially 2 games in a span of 72 to 96 hours and recovering at that point?
Yeah, that will be the first time we've done that since the conference semifinals in the spring. So 2 really good teams. You know, High Point are conference champions. UNCG just went on the road and beat Elon. So these 2 opponents are going to be CAA level quality, and they're going to be very difficult games. So we're excited to learn a lot about ourselves and to keep adding some pieces to our arsenal.
Well, Coach, we wish you the best of luck. Sunday's game again, 7 o'clock here at UNCW Soccer Stadium. Get your tickets online at uncwsports.com/buy tickets. Coach, we'll chat with you again next week.
Thanks again, Eric.
That's head coach Chris Neal. I'm Eric Rue. Thanks for joining us on this first edition of Keeping It Real with Coach Neal.